Hi friends, this afternoon I'm going to be spending a lot of time in the kitchen cooking up an autumn feast for our house group from church that are coming over for dinner this evening. I'm going to be cooking some delicious, cozy, warming food, a plum crumble and a delicious squash soup. I'm starting by making the plum crumble. So for the topping, I didn't have enough rice flour. I would normally put more rice flour in than this, but I'm doing a mixture of rice flour and gluten-free oats. Now the basic recipe for crumble topping is 2 parts flour or oats, 1 part butter and 1 part sugar. So in this case, I'm doing 250 or maybe 300 grams of oats and flour. And then it'll be 150 grams of sugar and 150 grams of coconut oil because I didn't have any dairy-free butter this day. I can also add some spices. I like to add a little bit of salt just to add extra flavour. You can really get creative with crumble topping. You can add nuts if you like. You could add lemon zest or orange zest. Really, you can just make it up as you go along and get as creative and imaginative as you like. Now I have to say this crumble didn't turn out quite as well as it normally does, and I think that might be because of the coconut oil. Definitely, if you don't have to eat dairy free, definitely use butter. That's the very best way to make it. But dairy free butter also works really well, but try and get the kind that sets hard. So I like to use a brand called Flora that comes as a block of butter. That works really well, but I've also used margarine in the past, which has been fine. It just maybe doesn't have quite the crumble to it as we would like. I've added a bit of cinnamon to that crumble topping because I think cinnamon goes so well with plums, and it just is that spice that reminds us immediately of autumn. These are plums that we picked up at the Pick Your Own that we went to a few weeks ago to get all of our apples. I'll link the video that I made about our day apple picking and what I did with all of those apples at the top of your screen. So the plums go in frozen, and I put 3, maybe 4 tablespoons of sugar on there just to sweeten them up a little bit. Then I'm going to sprinkle the crumble topping on the top, and it will cook in the oven for probably about 40 minutes. Because the fruit were frozen, it takes a little bit longer. If you're using compote applesauce or other fruit that is already cooked, you probably only need to cook it for about 20 minutes to 30 minutes. So just keep an eye on it. It really depends on what your fruit is like, how hard it is, if it's frozen, if it's already cooked. The timing will vary, but you'll know when your crumble is cooked because the fruit will be bubbling up from underneath and the topping will be nice and golden brown all over. Now I'm onto the cheese scones, and these were a bit of an improvisation because I had planned on making some apple and cinnamon sourdough bread, which I did make and I did film, but it turned out really badly, so I decided not to show you that. We did eat it and it was delicious, but the whole process did not go as I'd planned, so I thought I'd spare you the embarrassment of watching me make some terrible bread and make this instead. And it was such a good option. Our friends are all French that came in the evening, and they'd never tasted cheese scones. It's one of those things that's so typically British, and it's a real treat for our French friends and neighbours to try these things that for me seem so normal, but they'd just never tasted before. So in these cheese scones, I've put 320 grams of flour, 120 grams of butter, a teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of herbs, 3 teaspoons of baking powder, and I'm just going to let those mix together until they form breadcrumbs. And then I'm going to add my sourdough starter. So the sourdough starter replaces some of the flour and all of the water. And I started off by adding 180 grams of starter, but it wasn't quite enough. I think I probably added another 70 grams or so. I didn't measure it, I just eyeballed it. I think probably another 70 grams, so that would make it 250 grams total of sourdough starter. The dough needs to be very sticky and only just mixed together, otherwise you will overmix it and it will become hard. So the stickier the better. Don't worry, when you're rolling it out, it will all come together. And this is the point where you add your cheese right at the end of mixing. I used 240 grams of cheddar, and I just kept back about a quarter to sprinkle on the scones afterwards. I also added 1 teaspoon of mustard for the extra flavour. Now you need a really well floured work surface for this part. Roll out your scone dough until it's about 3 centimeters thick. You need it quite thick so it gets a good rise. And I'm just going to use my 4 centimeter cookie cutter to make little round scones, and there will be enough for everybody to have 2 each. Unfortunately, I didn't get any footage of this last part, but you need to brush each scone with an egg wash and then sprinkle the leftover cheese onto each scone. Now these scones are so delicious, served warm with salted butter. Absolutely amazing, and it went so well with the soup that I'm about to show you. I'm just making a traditional squash soup. We make this a lot over here in France. I know that there are some other countries that you tend to use pumpkin more in sweet dishes, but here in France it really is a savoury vegetable. I'm just preparing some leeks that I'm going to fry directly in the Instant Pot. I will fry them with some carrots too, and I will add some garlic right at the end so we get all of that pungent flavour and so that it doesn't brown. I don't know about you, but I don't really like the taste of brown garlic, so I always add it right at the end of frying, just so it has time to become more fragrant but doesn't have time to brown. This is definitely an orange vegetable soup. As you can see, loads of carrots are going in there, and the squash that I'm using is also orange. I think that it would probably be good if you could bulk it out with potato, but since I have a child that's allergic to potato, I can't use potato in this soup, which is why I'm adding a lot of carrots in there just to make it go a bit further. I cut the carrot in half and then cut it up into small chunks. Now it's time to get the scones out of the oven. Look at those, don't they look beautiful? And I can tell you they tasted as good as they look. It's definitely worth trying this recipe. Now it's back to the soup and I'm adding the garlic. So this is right before I'm going to add the liquid, which, as I said before, just keeps that pungent garlic taste. Now I'm doing a bit of a flashback here to show you how I prepared this squash. Now this is called potimarron in French, and I think the name is onion squash in English, though I have to say I've never seen this in British supermarkets, so let me know if you know this squash. Do you get this one where you live? We love it here. It's not as sweet as other squashes, so I think it makes a really good soup. It also has a kind of a floury texture, which I think also makes a really good soup. It's a bit more consistent, especially as we can't use potatoes. I use this squash a lot. I'm just going to roast it in the oven. I think it was in there probably for about 45 minutes. Keep your eye on it. It depends on how big it is. It might only take 30 minutes. It might take more like an hour. So just keep your eye on it. And I'm adding now some stock. That was some stock from a roast chicken that I'd made the day before. And now I'm adding the stock that I'd made earlier in the day that still needed to be strained, so I'm straining it directly into the soup. Now, since we were having a crowd over for dinner, I filled this Instant Pot up as high as it would go. So it is at the max and there was only just enough for everybody to have their soup, but they all really enjoyed it. I cooked it on the soup function for 30 minutes and it was perfectly cooked. Then I just blend it with an immersion blender directly in the Instant Pot until I get a beautiful silky smooth texture. And this is where you can see me suddenly realizing that I forgot to put salt in there. So thankfully I remembered before everybody arrived and I could add the salt as I was mixing it up. Now just look at that soup, look at the texture, isn't it gorgeous? It is so delicious with a little spoon of cream. Now I'm just getting our table ready before our friends arrive, and I had these hydrangeas that I dried from our garden, and I went on a little walk in the woods this morning and picked up these sticks, these little twigs, and I think that it makes a really cute autumnal arrangement that just is perfect on our wooden table. I'm going to light some candles. These are beeswax candles that one of my friends offered me for my birthday. I just love having candles in the kitchen and on the dinner table, especially when we have guests. It makes such a cozy environment. Do you like to light candles on your dining room table? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit like and leave a comment. I love to chat with you in the comments below. You can also subscribe. I make videos like this every week on homemade food from scratch, allergy-friendly meal ideas, and lots of sourdough. See you next time. Bye!